Hello guys, on today's tutorial we'll be working on tube bustier with yoke. You can have your bustier with or without the yoke depending on what style you want to achieve. But before we continue, kindly subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up. Thank you! This is Ashmarrie, where sewing is made easy. Welcome to Ashmarrie, where sewing is made easy. So I'm making a bustier with yoke, and this is the measurement I'll be working with. So you have your pen, you have your measuring tape and ruler, scissors, French curve, and your measurement. So we start with your shoulder measurement. The shoulder measurement is 16, that's what I'm using. Divided by 2 will give us 8. And then we get the distance of the shoulder. I'm using 5 because the neck I'm using is 3. That's what I want to use to create the yoke. And I want the neck to sit proper. So we have our distance for 5 and the neck is 3. So now we take our shoulder slant of 1 inch and then we'll rule it out. So after then we take our 1/2 inch for shoulder allowance. I prefer to take my 1/2 inch shoulder allowance before I take the body measurement. So that is where I start all my measurements from. So now I've ruled it out. Now I want to make the armhole. So to create the armhole, I use 8. But for you to get a proper armhole, you can use your bust measurement divided by 6, and then you add 1.5 inches. So with the 1.5 inches to it, you can get your bust measurement. So that is it. So now I am to rule the 8 out. So that is it. So for me to be able to create my armhole proper, I need my bust measurement there. And the bust measurement is 42 divided by 4. So that will give us 10.5. Then we also rule it. So but for us to be able to create our armhole to sit properly, I need to take it in by 1/2 inch. And to do that, we divide the 8 into 2. When we divide it, it gives us 4. So from that 4, that is where we now take 1/2 inch in. So now that we have that, we're able to create our armhole to sit and fit properly. It is better that you use your French curve. We have the one that you use for armhole. But if you don't have that, you can also use this type. There are different types of curves for different parts that you want to achieve. So now we have our armhole. Let me create the neck. Like I said earlier, I used 3 for the horizontal measurement. I'm using 3 also for the vertical. So I rule it out for me to have my round neck. So I also use the curve so that the neck would come out properly. So now that we have the neck, we are going to create the vertical measurement. And the vertical measurement I'm using starts from the shoulder, where I have the shoulder allowance. That's where I'm starting my measurement. So I have 10 for the bust, I have 14 for under bust, and 17 plus sewing allowance 18 for the half length. So I rule it out. So that is my bust. where I used 10. I rule it out. So I have the under bust, that is 14. I also rule it out. And I have the half length, which is 17 plus sewing allowance 18. I rule it out. So now that we have this, we are to create our dart. But to be able to do that, first we have to get the bust span, which is 4. We're using 8. So if I divide it into 2, is 4. So I have 4 and I have 4 all through. So now I rule the 4 out for the bust span. So now that we have this, is for us to take our dart. We're using 2 inches, so you divide it 1 inch on one side and 1 at the other side. That also for the waist, where we have the half length, 1 inch at this side and 1 inch at the other side. Then we connect it with the ruler. So, but please note that for some busts, you can use 1.5 at that side and 1 at the other side. That is 2.5. But I used 2 because the bust is not too big. So now we have ruled it out. We are supposed to now connect it to the bust. But before we do that, we bring it down by 1 inch so that it would sit properly and it will not eat into the bust cup. So now I have my curve to be able to create the cup properly. So that is it. And then we also have it at the other side. Yes. So now we are to create the upper dart. You can have it straight, which takes you mostly to the neck, or you have it slanted, but I would want the slanted one. So I'm using the shoulder to achieve that. By doing that, I divide the shoulder into 2, that is 2.5. Remember, our shoulder distance is 5. And then I connect it to the bust vertically. So now we have this. I'm supposed to create the yoke. I'm going to use yoke for mine. So to get the distance, I'm using 6.5 to get the distance of the yoke that I want. 6.5. So it means that from there, that is where my cup also starts. So I rule out the 6.5 so that I'll be able to create my dart for the upper part of the cup. So to create that first, I also take 1 inch up so that it does not affect the bust like I did earlier on when I was taking it down. And then here I'm taking 2 inches also. So I'm using, you can have 1 inch on both sides, or for me I'm having 1.5 on one side and I'm having half at the other side. Reason being that I want the distance of the chest to be a bit wider. So that is why I'm using that. But for you, you can use 1 inch. So now we are to connect it with our curve. So that is it. We have that now. So now we are to create our yoke, but before we do that, the ½ inch side that we took, by the time we measure, we cut it out, it might not balance. So for us to get our cup that when we are sewing it's equal, you measure the distance. We have 4 on this side and we have 3 on this side. So we have we add 1 inch up there, connect it back, so that by the time you cut it out, both sides when you're sewing will be equal. So now that we have that, we take our the yoke. I want it to be sweetheart neck, so I've taken 1.5 inches down. I want to now connect it to the dart. So I use my cuff so that the sweetheart neck would show properly and look nice. So now I have connected that. I also want to connect it to the armhole. When you're placing your cuff, please make sure that it sits properly. Okay, so that is it. So now that we have created the cup, we now want to take our bust measurement, all the measurements. Like we said earlier, we have 10.5 for the bust measurement that we've divided 42 into 4, so it gives us 10.5. We are ruling it on the 8 so that it would sit, yes. So now we add 2 inches sewing allowance. So we come down to the under bust, we have 8.5, then we add 2 inches from the dart that we removed from the dart. Yes, same also at the half length, 2 inches that we took from the dart, we added there. Then we add another 2 inches for sewing allowance. So now we have these measurement, then we connect it. Okay, so this is it. We now have it complete. So I'm doing with the yoke. You can see it together. And if you do not want to do with the yoke, you can remove it and you have your tube. So now we want to cut the back. So we start first by taking 1.5 inch for zip allowance and we roll it down. After that, we take our shoulder measurement, which is 8, and the shoulder distance is 5. Then we bring down 1 inch for shoulder slant, just like we did in front. So after doing that, we take our 1/2 inch for shoulder allowance for the joining, and then we also connect. So after doing that, we now want to create our armhole for the back. We use 8 just like we did in front, and we roll it out. So that's it. But for this back, please note that as we are trying to create the armhole, we need the bust measurement also to create the armhole, to connect it. But we are not using the we are not using the half that we took in from the front. We just connect direct. Remember, in front we took in 1/2 inch to be able to do the curve for the armhole, but for the back we do not need that. So now we have our armhole. we are to create the neck. So I'm using 1.5 for the depth, and then I connect. So now that we have that, we are taking the vertical measurements. I'm using 10 for the bust. I don't need under bust measurement, so I go straight to the half length, which is 17, and I add 1 inch for sewing allowance, which is 18. So now that I have that, I now connect by ruling it out. So that is 10 for under bust, for bust measurement, and then that is 17 and 18 for half length. So now that we have that, I'm taking 1/2 inch in at the half length, where the half length measurement is. That is to enable my zip to sit properly. So I just ruled it out. It helps my zip to relax. Now I take my bust measurement. I put 2 inches sewing allowance. I come down to take my half length waist measurement, and I put 2 inches allowance. I want to remove the slant for the yoke first. So I'm removing the slant to rest on 10, from the armhole down to 10. Now that we have that, so I want to create the dart. I'm using 4 to create the dart. I use 1/2 inch on both sides, which will give me 1 inch to get the dart. So that is it. Now I'm to connect the measurement from the bust to the half length. So we have it. It's time for us to cut. But please note that before cutting, the 1/2 inch that we removed from the half length, we have to also remove it from the zip. Remember, we used 1.5 for the zip, and by the time you take that half length, we'll be giving you 2, so you need to remove that half back. So it gives your back zip a kind of curve to help it relax around the waist. So now we have our center back, we have the side back, and then the yoke. So you can do without the yoke. I am doing with the yoke because of the style I'm trying to achieve. So, but you can do without the yoke. Yeah, and you have the tube back. So that is it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please kindly subscribe and ask questions at the comment section.